Dinner at my parents' house always follows the same rhythm. My mother cooks too much food. My father opens a bottle of something he insists we should finish. My sister arrives late and loud, bringing whatever version of her life she wants us to admire that month. That night she brought a man named Daniel. He walked in slightly ahead of her, like he already belonged there. Confident smile. Firm handshake. The kind of person who fills silence quickly so it never has time to judge him. I noticed how quickly my parents liked him. My mother laughed too easily at things that weren't really jokes. My father asked about his work within 5 minutes of sitting down. My sister watched it all with quiet satisfaction. I arrived last. No one had noticed. By the time I sat down, Daniel was already comfortable enough to start joking. At first it was harmless. Small comments about how quiet I was. A quick smile in my direction as if inviting me to laugh along. When I didn't, he tried again. "So," he said, glancing at my sister, "is he always this intense, or did I say something wrong already?" My sister laughed immediately. It wasn't cruel laughter, just eager. The kind people use when they want the person beside them to keep talking. My father smiled into his glass. Daniel leaned back in his chair, pleased with the reaction. I could feel the direction the evening had chosen. People like Daniel test a room early. They say something slightly sharp, and watch who objects. If no one does, they keep going. He kept going. Another comment about my silence. Another joke about how I must be the mysterious sibling. My sister added something about how I had always been the weird one growing up. Everyone laughed again. I wasn't embarrassed exactly, not yet. It felt more like watching a play where the audience had already decided which character I was. I kept eating. After the third round of jokes, my mother finally spoke, but not the way I expected. She didn't tell him to stop. She looked at me and said gently but firmly, "Don't make it awkward, just relax." The table nodded slightly like the problem had been identified. I realized then that I had been assigned the role of tension, so I stayed quiet. Sometimes silence is mistaken for weakness. That works out well if you're patient. Dinner drifted toward safer topics. Travel, a cousin's wedding, my father's complaints about traffic. Then Daniel mentioned his job. He didn't say it modestly. He said the company name with the tone people use when they expect recognition. My father gave him exactly that. "Ah, I've heard of them," he said. Daniel smiled. "It's a pretty intense environment," he added. "You have to be sharp to survive there." My sister looked at him the way people do when they've already decided someone impressive has entered their life. He described his role broadly. Technical language mixed with vague authority. The kind of explanation that sounds sophisticated without actually revealing much. Everyone listened. I recognized the company immediately. Not just the company. The department he claimed to work in. For a moment I thought I might be mistaken, so I let him talk a little longer. Then I pulled out my phone. No one noticed. The table was still orbiting Daniel's confidence. My father asked about long hours. My sister added something about how driven he was. I opened a message thread. A name appeared at the top. Mark. Director of that exact department. We'd worked together 2 years earlier on a consulting project. Not closely, but enough that we'd stayed in touch occasionally. Just last month he had complained to me over coffee about an applicant who'd exaggerated experience in that team. I looked back at Daniel. He was explaining how selective the company had become. I asked my first question. Quietly. "So you're with the infrastructure group?" He nodded immediately. "Yeah, that's right." Under Mark's division, the confidence in his voice stayed the same. "Exactly." My sister glanced at me, slightly surprised I had spoken at all. I scrolled once on my phone. Then I asked another question. Something small. Something that only someone inside that structure would know to ask. Daniel paused. Just a second. Then he answered anyway. The answer was wrong. Not obviously wrong to anyone else at the table, but wrong enough. I placed my phone down on the table beside my plate. "I know Mark," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile either. Daniel blinked. The room shifted slightly. "He and I worked together a while back," I added. "We still talk sometimes." Daniel's posture changed so subtly most people wouldn't notice. My sister did. Her smile faded into something tighter. Daniel cleared his throat. Well, it's a big organization, he said. Different teams, of course, I said calmly. I didn't accuse him. I didn't expose him. I just asked another small question, a detail about the team structure. This time he hesitated longer. My father looked between us. The energy at the table had become unfamiliar. Daniel tried to explain again, but the explanation grew more complicated as he spoke. Titles changed, responsibilities blurred. The confidence that had carried the evening disappeared quietly. I didn't interrupt. I simply listened. Finally, I tapped my phone once and turned the screen slightly so it faced me again. I could ask him, I said lightly, just to say hello. Daniel stopped talking. Across the table, my sisters stared at him, waiting. The silence lasted longer than any joke earlier that night. I picked up my fork again. That's all right, Daniel said after a moment. His voice had softened. Different divisions, right, I said. No one laughed. Dinner continued, but it moved slowly now. Daniel spoke less. My sister watched him more carefully. My parents focused on their plates. No apology came. I hadn't expected one. When the meal ended, my mother began clearing dishes. As I stood to leave, I noticed something small. No one asked me to relax. No one joked about me being the quiet one. And Daniel didn't look at me again.